age-related changes to vision are quite common. And in order to understand why they occur, it's first necessary to understand a little bit about how our vision works. And so in order for us to really see, we have to first take light into the eye. And so light comes in and is focused by two structures. The cornea, which you can see here, lining this outside of the eye, as well as the lens, which you can see here. And the lens actually changes shape to help focus this light. There's a particular muscle, which you can see here on either side of the lens, that is called the ciliary body, which relaxes and contracts to change the shape of the lens. And the cornea helps to refract and bend the light in order to focus it. And the light, once it comes into the eye and is focused by the cornea and the lens, is actually focused onto a specific part of the eye here called the retina. Even more specifically into this location at the center of the retina called the fovea centralis. And it's important that light all be focused into the same place for you to be able to see, right? And so you can see here what happens when the ciliary body muscles that change the shape of the lens are relaxed versus contracted, and how that helps us kind of see objects that are both far away and close to us. And so when the ciliary body is relaxed, the lens has kind of a wider, flatter shape. And you can see here, relaxed ciliary body muscles results in kind of a wide lens. And that wide lens, according to physics properties that I'm not going to get into, can take light from a faraway object and then ultimately concentrate that light here onto the retina. And when we're focusing on an object that's closer, the ciliary body contracts, and those muscles turn that lens from a kind of flattened shape into a more circular shape. And that circular shape allows us to focus on an object near rather than far by focusing the light still onto that specific part of the retina, that fovea centralis. And since the location of the fovea centralis is never changing and the object might be changing, the way we compensate for those differences, trying to see far versus near objects, is changing the shape of the lens. And once the light has converged onto the retina, it's converted into electrical signals that can be interpreted by the brain, and that's how we see. And so some of the things that happen as we age that can affect vision are presbyopia, which is a time-dependent loss of the ability to focus on kind of those close-up objects. Sometimes people would refer to this as like a loss of the ability to read, right? And so lens cells are actually not replaced or repaired. They're what's called terminally differentiated. And so once the lens cells of your eye are made, there's really not a good way to maintain them. And unfortunately, that means that the collagen that's actually supporting and making these cells have the shape that they do stiffens, and when it does, there's no real way to combat that. And that means that the lens cells kind of become suspect and more dysfunctional as a result of collagen stiffening. And so when that happens, the lens is actually hardened and it becomes less flexible. And so, as I said on the previous slide, it's really important for the lens to be able to change shape, for you to focus on objects that are both near and far, right? And so when the lens has its kind of flattened shape and the ciliary body muscles are relaxed, that lens can focus on faraway objects. But when the lens hardens because of collagen stiffening during age, that lens can't actually change shape like it needs to focus on a close-up object. It can't adopt that nice rounded conformation. The ciliary body muscles can contract, but the lens doesn't change shape. And so it ends up focusing the image in the wrong place. Rather than onto the retina, somewhere that would ideally be kind of behind the retina. And that results in something that looks like this to an individual who has presbyopia. They can focus on those far away objects, but not this close-up one. And that's because the lens is too hard to change shape. And you can correct presbyopia by adding an additional lens in front of it, like glasses or contact lenses, to focus that image in the correct place again. And not only does the collagen stiffen in the lens to make this kind of condition happen, there's also a decrease in the amount of muscle contraction of the ciliary body that changes the shape of the lens that can contribute to presbyopia as well. So a combination of too stiff of a lens and not enough muscle contraction of the ciliary body means that the lens doesn't change shape the way it needs to. And luckily, this is something that can be pretty easily corrected with glasses. Another kind of very common age-related change to vision is a condition known as cataracts. And a cataract is really just a cloudiness or opacity that occurs in the lens portion of the eye here. And you can see this cloudiness in a place that we generally associate as clear. And what this leads to is actually a blurred vision, because the light can no longer travel through that nice, transparent, clear lens. It's trying to get through this cloudy lens, and it bends and refracts as a result, and it can't ultimately be focused and reach the retina, which makes it difficult to see. And you can see here in this image, cataracts are extremely prevalent in all age groups over kind of 60. And the reason for this kind of cataracts formation is because the lens of the eye contains a protein called crystalline. And crystalline is an interesting protein because it helps maintain that lens's transparency. But crystalline is a relatively difficult protein to fold, and so it has a chaperone called alpha crystalline that helps keep crystalline folded correctly inside the lens of the eye. What's interesting is that the levels and the function of alpha crystalline decreases with age. And when the levels of the chaperone, alpha crystalline, decreases, crystalline itself can misfold and form aggregates. And those aggregates of crystalline mean that crystalline is no longer transparent and clear, but it takes on this opaque or kind of cloudy structure. And you can see that here. Crystalline, under normal circumstances, is folded and the lens is transparent. However, without alpha crystalline, crystallines can aggregate, and that leads to kind of an opacity of the lens.